Dear students, I am Kirti Tiwari, Professor of English, having 42 years of teaching experience in PG and UG classes. I have prepared several lectures on various topics that would be very beneficial for students of undergraduate and postgraduate classes, particularly in English language and literature. Here is a lecture of mine on a very interesting topic, semantics. I have divided my lecture into three parts. The first part is an introduction to semantics, giving its history in brief, and then dealing with the conceptions of meaning and types of meaning, followed by understanding the concept of sememe. In the second part, I have discussed synonymy, antonymy, polysemy and homonymy. The third part discusses collocation and set. And in the end, I have tried to discuss some questions on this topic also. At the outset, let us understand what is semantics. Linguistics, as we know, is a scientific or systematic study of human language. And as we know, language is made up of sounds, words and sentences, and all three doesn't make any sense if they don't convey any meaning. To quote S.K. Verma, in this context, I give the definition of linguistics, which is linguistics have set up phonological, morphological, lexical, syntactic and semantic levels of analysis. Unquote. Just as phonetics is the study of speech sounds and morphology deals with words, syntax with sentences. Similarly, semantics is the systematic study of meaning and its various aspects in language. So, to start with, let us glance over a brief history of the meaning. Semantics may be a new subject, but what it deals with, that is meaning, that is quite old. Ancient philosophers like Plato and Aristotle, including others also, and logicians of the past all have shown great interest in the study of meaning. Even in oldest texts like Rig Veda, much importance was given to meaning. We have reflections on speech. It says, speech without meaning is like the tree without fruits and flowers. Similarly, Katyan, Patanjali and Vyas also pondered upon meaning. They considered the relationship between word and meaning as eternal. Today, all agree that meaning is the soul of language. Now, it is interesting to see that Ogden and Richards had distinguished between 16 to 18 meanings of meaning. Some of them have been listed here on the slide, and you can see, you will be explained how each sentence has the word mean or meaning, and in each of them it conveys a different sense. Take for instance the first sentence. John means to write. Here means indicate the purpose that John intends to write. In the second sentence, a green light means go. Here means convey the meaning of indicate. Means a green light indicates go. The next sentence, health means everything. Here means convey the meaning of has importance. So the sentence could be understood as health has importance in our life. Fourth sentence is his look was full of meaning. In this, meaning conveys the sense of special import. That means his look was full of special import. In the question, what is the meaning of life? Here, meaning refers to point or purpose. We often say, what is the purpose of life? What is the meaning of life? Then another question, what does capitalist mean to you? So here, mean tries to express the sense of convey. So it could be, what does capitalist convey to you? In the last sentence, what does cornea mean? Here, mean suggests refer to in the world. What does cornea mean? To the whole world. So it is the last kind of use that comes closest to the focus of linguistics. If we want to have a definition, it becomes unusual. So in semantics, we study the way in which words and sentences convey meaning in everyday situation of speech and writing. Now this leads to different conceptions of meaning. Here we will discuss three conceptions of meaning. The first view is quite a popular view given by Plato in his work Cratylus. This view suggests that words name or refer to things, and the examples he gives are the proper nouns like London, Bill Brown and Daddy to illustrate the conception. But there are larger number of words where it is not possible to see what things or words they refer to. For example, if you take the verbs like ask or find, or adjectives like difficult and popular, what things they refer to? So they don't indicate things. In fact, there are majority of words which seem unable to be related to things in a very clear way. So we come to the second viewpoint, which holds that for every word there is an associated concept, and it has been made clear in the Semiotic Triangle of Ogden and Richards, which we are going to discuss in detail later in the same lecture, which will make the things more clear. So this we see that it is difficult to identify the concepts. For instance, the concept underlying the word tradition, it is not easy to define. Similarly, there is no guarantee that a concept which might come into my mind when I am using a word like, say, table, would be the same in the mind of listener. Suppose I say table and you are listening. If I have the imagination of a wooden structure on which we keep the books and sit at it and write, that table, maybe in your mind the tables that you draw in science subjects, that table may come. So because of this disparity, the third view was considered, which is the behaviorist point of view. Leonard Bloomfield, while he presented his famous book Language, in it he says, I quote, "Meaning is something that can be deduced solely from a study of the situation in which speech is used." So meaning is always with regard to the context. And he gives an equation that you can see here on the slide. Here capital S stands for stimulus, which can lead someone to speak, and small r is the response to it. The bigger R is the response that results from the speech. And Bloomfield has given the example of Jack and Jill. He says, he tries to explain the whole phenomena with a very simple and cute example of Jack and Jill. He says that Jill is hungry. So she sees an apple. She sees an apple, and this apple acts as stimulus, the capital S. So she asks Jack to get it for her So which would be response to the stimulus, small r. Then the linguistic stimulus S leads Jack getting the fruit apple, which is final response capital R. Now Bloomfield argues that you can tell what is the meaning of response and stimulus by observing the events that accompany it. But then there is a twist. In many situations, it is difficult to demonstrate what relevant features of the stimulus are. Real problem arises when events are not visible clearly, and then difficulty may also arise when people do not act in a predicted way. Here it is simple that Jill sees an apple, at the same time she is hungry, so linguistically she demands Jack to bring the apple and he brings. So this is quite predictable. You ask somebody to bring something and he readily agrees, and in response he brings it. But then, if in the same story, suppose Jack refuses to get the apple, this may happen. Maybe both have fought and he is angry with Jill. Then you can't explain. So in this way, meaning is quite a complicated concept. Now let us see how many types of meaning are there in a language. You can broadly classify meaning into two types. The first is the lexical meaning, which include the words that convey meaning. In other words, we also call them content words. These meaning refer to objects, actions and qualities. And these objects, action or qualities can be identified in the external world. Take for example, table. You can easily see and visualize banana, a fruit, eat and read. Another way of understanding lexical meaning is the words that you find in dictionary. That's why dictionary is known as writing dictionary is known as lexicography. So these content words, the words that convey some definite meaning, they are called, those meanings are called lexical meanings. Then there are many words that don't convey exactly the meaning as lexical meaning does, but they are also important because they do some or the other grammatical function in a sentence or in language. So they exist because of their grammatical function. So words can also have grammatical meaning. So in fact, most of the words in a language come under these two categories. Now we come to another complex concept, sememe. In order to understand the term, let me quote Adolph Noreen's definition, who defines sememe as a definite idea content expressed in some linguistic form. Leonard Bloomfield later brought the term in American linguistics. To quote his words, Sememes are the minimum indivisible semantic units of human languages defined by linguists. They are more or less the concept you will understand if you have read morphology and phonology or phonetics. There we have phonemes and morphemes. Similarly, here we have sememes. So they are the minimum indivisible semantic units that cannot be divided further. So, and if we trace the origin of the term sememe, it comes from the Greek language, the word semene, which literally means mean or signifier. So as I said, it is a unit of meaning, just as morpheme is a unit of word. And there is a branch of semantics known as structural semiotics, and sememe belongs to that. Let us now understand what is sememe. As we know, language is a means of communication, and it expresses itself through sounds. It conveys ideas, thoughts and feelings. So these sounds, they act as signals. They convey us something. Now, a speech sound that is uttered, we utter so many sounds, but all sounds are not a speech sound. Speech sounds are the sound that convey some meaning. So, a speech sound that is uttered is known as the linguistic form. Every linguistic form should convey something. Every word should convey something. Then only it makes some sense. And what they convey is called sememe. So sememe is the smallest unit of semantics which deals with meaning. It transmits meaning in all natural languages. Now, various linguists have studied sememe from their point of view, and as a result we get several perspectives. The first is that of Mentalist. According to the Mentalist view, if the linguistic form apple is uttered, it should evoke an object. Here the fruit apple. You can see the image of fruit on the slide. So as soon as someone utters apple, this comes in our mind. So it is presupposed that you have the experience of looking, handling and eating an apple, or at least you have heard about this fruit. If you have that experience, then only the word will evoke in your mind the image of an apple. If you have never come across this fruit, you don't have any first-hand knowledge about this fruit, or have not read or heard about it anywhere, then even if this word is uttered, it will not convey any meaning to you. Another point of view is the Mechanist view. This school of philosophers believe that the utterance of the linguistic form apple. The simple word apple is taken as an example because we all know about it. So again this apple comes. So Mechanist view says that the utterance of this word apple, as soon as someone utters, it works on the nervous system in a manner similar to you had first seen or handled the fruit, and then you remember the fruit and associate it with the linguistic form. So the word stimulates the nervous system, and then in your brain you imagine it and then associate it with the linguistic form which is uttered, that is APPLE. Some philosophers don't believe that there is any direct link between words and objects. This has been explained beautifully by Ogden and Richards in their famous Semiotic Triangle. So, let us understand the concept more clearly. Here you will see that symbol can be a word. It starts with the symbol. Here you can see, here this is the symbol. May be a word, this symbol may be a word or a phrase or a linguistic form. The referent is the object it refers to, and the reference is the thought where interpretation of linguistic form, that is apple, takes place by consulting, as we have just discussed, the past experience or memory of the listener. So in this way, first something is uttered which acts as symbol which refers to something, and then we have its reflection. You can see that the triangle has no base, which is indicated by the broken lines. This indicates that there is no direct relation between word or thing, between symbol and referent. So this is not actually fixed. That's why I said same word can refer to different things. Now let us see how the semantic meanings of words are composed of a set of sememes in many cases. I have taken the example of the word husband. This word conveys two meanings. It could be husband is a married man, that's very common. And the second is carefully used. You see, husbandry, husbanding the resources and so on and so forth. So their sememes would be, if we take up the first meaning, husband, married man. So married man obviously is a human being, a male person belonging to family, family oriented, and obviously a spouse. So all these three words, family, male and spouse, are associated with husband. So three senses. Whereas if we take the other one, carefully used, it conveys only one sense, that is one semi, economize. Okay. So in this way you can see that the concept of meaning and semi are not very easy. You have to ponder about it. Before we come to close, I would also like to discuss types of sememes. Types of sememes are of two types. One is denotational and the other is connotational. Denotational are the meanings that the words denotes that we find in dictionaries. Connotations are the meaning that the words evoke, and that may be because of several reasons. So let us understand this concept. So the first denotational meaning, if we take up the example of head. So head is the part of the body which is called the crown of the body. Secondary denotation may resemble with the first, like the head of the ship means the front part of the ship, means the topmost, you can say, just as head is on the topmost part of the body, similarly head of the ship. So these are the literal type of meanings. Then if we take a connotational, it is analogous in function as the original denotation. For example, head. Head used for any leading position in an organization or institution, like head of the institution, principal, or manager, or director. So he actually is playing the role of the head. Our head, which has the brain, does all the operations, commands, all the actions. Similarly, this head also, whether it's a manager or a director or prime minister or anything, head of the nation, that is the same. Second can be emotive, which means honey. And we call the head of the family, his very dear wives call them honey. The third connotational meaning is evaluative. Say, for instance, if we take the word sneak, it means move silently and secretly for a bad purpose. So this is in short about semantics and sememes. Here is a list of books which I have consulted while preparing this lecture, and students can also read them in order to have a detailed understanding of the topics we have discussed, and it's very good for the further reading also. With this, I stop my lecture, hoping to meet you soon in the next part of the lecture on semantics.